You may think that once your relationship with a narcissist has broken up, if they've discarded you and it seemed very final, you may think that they're done for good. And even the narcissist might think that they're done with you for good. But narcissists rarely ever give the ultimate discard to somebody where they are in fact done with that person for good. The main case where the narcissist might have discarded you for good and never want anything to do with you again could be if you caused a massive narcissistic injury to them. Maybe you exposed them. Maybe you outsmarted them in a certain way that just, maybe they had massively underestimated you. There's certain things that you can do to injure them so bad that they might never want to come back into your life. But putting those scenarios aside, it's very unlikely that the narcissist will give you an ultimate discard. What they'll do is they'll give you a discard when they're done with you, when they figure that they've used the supply that was available from you. They'll move on to their new replacement supply, who, for the time being, they're very excited about. The person's probably energizing them a lot. They're over the moon because of the novelty of the new person and the good supply that this new replacement has. When they're onto the new replacement supply early on, it can often be the case that you're not really at the forefront of their mind, that they've forgotten about you. Although, having said that, narcissists do like the idea that you're suffering when they've moved on to the replacement. They do like to get evidence that you're confused, that the lack of closure has confused you and has kept you in a situation where you can't move on. Them knowing that you're going through that does give them this kind of post-discard supply. But so they might be enjoying that, but they're mainly enjoying the replacement supply and everything that the replacement has to offer. But narcissists live their lives going cycle after cycle, the same charade repeating itself over and over again. So in the back of the narcissist's mind, they do know that eventually they will get bored of the new replacement and that the replacement just won't be up to scratch anymore. And when that happens, the narcissist cannot help but think and wonder, are there other supplies out there? Are there other supplies that they could kind of resort to give them the supply that they so much need? Because if the replacement's going stale, then the narcissist isn't being properly supplied. Because it's difficult for narcissists to acquire new supply, to find new people who are susceptible to their ways, who are capable of falling for the charades and also very manipulatable and have good supply and offer. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of work, and it takes time, and it's not always easy. So what that means is narcissists are very often, they consider, when they're thinking about getting new supply for themselves, they consider former supplies, people who maybe they've been in romantic relationships in the past as potential supplies in the future, which could include you. So they hardly give the ultimate discard. When the replacement supply starts to become a bit stale in their eyes, they start scanning in their minds, okay, who are the past many people who I've been in relationships with who might be willing to take me back? So that's kind of the thought process. And they start throwing in testers in the water of those that they think might be of interest, that might be good ones for them. And that's where you come into the picture. That's where they think of you again. And that's where they think of testing the waters with you again. Because once the replacement supply is stale, the novelty is worn off, the narcissist no longer idealizes the person. So the replacement supply has gone stale in their mind. In you, the former supply, let's say over the course of months and years, you've moved on somewhat, maybe you've gotten over the confusion, got over the heartbreak, and maybe you're doing well for yourself. You're doing well for yourself now. Taking all that together basically means that you are now more appealing in their eyes than the current supply that's gone stale. So that's when the narcissist might want to come back and throw testers in the water to see if you might be willing to entertain them back in. And that's just how they operate. And they know that, as they go from one supply to the other, they're always going to reach that point or the new supply that was all exciting and really gave them the kick they wanted, the supply they needed, will very soon lose the potency, in which case they need to consider who from their past they can revive and bring back to life to serve them. So it's just worth you bearing in mind that when the narcissist does leave you, when they do discard you, unless you've caused them a massive narcissistic injury, they're hardly ever going to be gone for good. And if you were somebody who really supplied them well, who really had an ability to kind of energize yourself and therefore energize them, if you were very empathetic towards them, if you really tried hard to please and fix them, and if they see that you're doing well now, that they've been gone for some time, there's a really strong chance that they're entertaining the thought of you and wanting to come back in. And your job is just to make clear that when the Hoover, make clear to yourself that when the Hoover does come, you won't respond. And that if at any point they do make physical contact with you in front of you, that, in the right way, you make it crystal clear that you're moved on and that there's nothing between you anymore. If the Hoover comes, ignore it. If they see you, just be diffident, indifferent, just not really caring much about them being there. They'll get the point, and they'll move on to the next one. They'll move on to the next target that might consider taking them in.